Thank you very much, Mr. President. I'm always looking forward to the national defense budget, and I'm prepared to be disappointed every year because my high hopes are for us one day, soon, hopefully, sooner more than later, our military acquires the effectiveness and the reliability to be able to protect our country. After all, in the Constitution, in the Declaration of Principles, it's all there. And every year I ask some hopefully pertinent questions, strategic questions, if you will. Mr. President, may I ask the good sponsor, just for revival information, what do we consider are the essential threats, the external threats to our country?
Well, of course, external threat, mostly, of course, in the West Philippine Sea, Mr. President. I need not consult him because you and I know that that is the biggest threat between us. Yeah.
Yes.
If we talk about external, then that's it. And of course, the influx of some trainers, terrorists from other countries that that would train, especially the Abu Sayyaf group in Sulu Tawi-Tawi area.
I was just in Singapore and I asked the same question. Of course, they tried to avoid our big neighbor, although later on they admitted. They also said initially their threats as a nation came from the south, mainly from Indonesia and even Malaysia. After all, they broke off from the Federation. Now, in our case, Mr. President, if we have threats, we don't have to go to war, as the Latin maxim goes, si vis pacem para bellum. If you want to prepare for
Peace.
if you want to prepare for war, you want peace, you have to prepare for war.
Yes, yes.
And to my mind, even if we have a modicum of defense, I think it is important that we have enough time to be able to acquit ourselves initially in the initial conflict. So much so that later on, other countries can assist us. But I would like to go back to the example because at times we beggar ourselves and we tend to make it appear na wala tayong kaya. And I always bristle when the President says, masyadong malakas ang kalaban, hindi natin kaya yan, mamamatay lang ang ating mga sundalo. But that's precisely why we're a nation. We have a military and we rely gloriously, really, upon our soldiers who will fight for our country and for our reservists, which are still, so far as I'm concerned, poorly trained and almost non-existent. Their presence is not felt, and that's why we're trying to revive ROTC. So, having said that, Mr. President, ang iniisip ko is how would we go about making sure that that credibility is attained? What comes to mind, for an example, and I just showed some of our soldiers and Secretary Lorenzana a copy of the Book of Israel, when they were early on in their fight for their independence in 1948, they had nothing. They had, I wonder if the minority would give me some space so that these are very good friends of mine. One of them is my fraternity brother, one belongs to the other fraternity. And as you can see, they don't listen. Mr. President, would you like to? Because I'm delivering it extemporaneously, and I cannot tell my younger Brad seniority, but the older Brad from Sigmaro I cannot order because he's always been ahead of me. So thank you very much for listening. you know. These are things that we do in a rather comedic way, if you will, so that so at that time hindi naniniwala yung Israel na matatalo sila. Now, if you look at the map, and I just want to show this not by way of being a pedant or anything like that. If we look at the map, you can see, and that is the map after the Yom Kippur War, where they attained more territory. But I think the initial map shows that Israel is totally surrounded by its enemies, and it's overland. Can you show that? Yeah, the previous map. And you can see Israel had Egypt at the time, one of the mightiest in the Middle East, the leader of the Middle East, if you will. And at the same time, we had Syria, and Jordan, and Syria, and Jordan, and they were even outpositioned by the Golan Heights, for example, the Heights. So we said that, shouldn't we be encouraging the executive to say what we need to do is really build up our military, And I go now to the fact that we have had, since the bases were asked to leave here by the Philippines, there was supposed to be a modernization plan. And I know that there's about 25 billion, if I'm not mistaken, or 22 billion. And of that, we have already spent 188 billion. That was supposed to be a year, if I'm not mistaken. Was that a year or 5 billion a year? 5 billion a year. Since 2002. So what is unreleased right now is 285 billion. Would that be correct, sir?
Sorry,
28
sir.
billion.
Sorry.
For modernization. Sorry? Your Honor?
Less than 200, actually. 190. 197 billion.
Now, we also get weaponry from Korea. I think we got a Corvette from Korea recently. Would that be correct, sir?
No, nakuha ba yan?
With missiles. It has become our most modern vessel. Is it not true? Ano ba RPS? The Pohang class. The Pohang class.
Frigate. Yeah.
A frigate. So that would be our most modern vessel right now.
Yes, that is correct, Mr. President.
Yes, and we have to retire yung mga Bonifacio, you have to retire all the other vessels.
We need not retire, actually. As long as we can utilize them, then we need not retire them because we still lack vessels.
Now, the reason I point this out, Mr. President, is because there are many, many lessons in history. For an example, in World War II, when Dunkirk was totally surrounded, and the British Navy could not move because the German Air Force had mastery of the skies, they never gave up. And they went on and fought until eventually the Americans came. And that is my point. In the cabinet, is that discussed? I mean, if the president is saying, wala tayong laban dyan, should we disabuse that and not let China feel that we are pushovers, that we are cream puffs, so to speak? Na wala tayong kalaban-laban? Do we want our people to accept that?
In Dunkirk, Mr. President, Winston Churchill even utilized civilian vessels.
That's correct. I was about to say that.
To rescue the...
It was the greatest rescue.
Yes,
No.
that is correct.
And my point here is, as Secretary of National, and I don't mean to put my very good friend, whom I respect and revere, Del Lorenzana in a spot, I think it's about time that we in the Senate and help Secretary Lorenzana explicitate the fact that we have a fighting chance all the time. If Israel in 1948 with their Sten guns ba yun at that time, then they invented the Uzi afterwards, and then they started building up their own planes. And I see it now again in China. I don't know if we brought the plane. I got the plane from a friend of mine the other day, and this is a plane, I think it's the JV-10. Do you have a picture? And my question here is, are we building our military-industrial complex? We used to have, and I was the first president nominally of Nobel Philippines here. I was in Accra. They named me president of Nobel. We were supposed to be making munitions like M16s, and I think that's gone. Hindi na talaga magawa ngayon, di ba? Wala na.
Small arms, Mr. President.
Now, consider, Your Honor,
M16 and 14 and 45.
45.
9mm M16, M14, and caliber 45.
What's the M15?
M14.
M14. Oh, yeah. Hanggang ngayon gumagawa pa yung M14. Yes, I just came to mind that when I go to the Maritime Institute of Asia and the Pacific, run by a former chief of staff of the Armed Forces and the Navy, they have M14s, and many of our ROTC come around with wooden guns. And when I was in ROTC, we used to have Springfields that at least pretended that there were weapons indeed. But my point here is basically, if we don't have that military complex that we would like to, is there any vision going to that? I'm looking at the future, because the Chinese build their own planes now. The Chengdu J-20, There you go. It's in my, I precisely filched it from my friend who was collecting aircraft, and I said we're going to have the budget. I wanted to show this. And what they have is the body of a plane that they built there, but the engines were built by Russians, which is, I think, what other countries are doing. Except for Singapore, they build, and the Japanese, they build their own F-15s or F-16s. But my point is, when do we start? Sapagkat kung gusto, maraming paraan. Kung ayaw, maraming dahilan. I've always lived by that.
It is always a question of money, Mr. President. And as it is now, as upon question of Senator Recto this morning, the minimum requirement as per their security strategy approved in 2018 is minimum of 2% of GDP. But right now, where we stand, it's only 1.5 of GDP, percent of GDP.
It's a very low base, right?
Yes, that is correct.
So the philosophy should be like the Japanese did, strengthen the military, enrich the country. That is what they did right after the Meiji Restoration and all throughout, and I have adopted it to a certain extent. Let's enrich the country, strengthen the military. And that's why yesterday I made that long harangue over the fact that our foreign direct investments were so low. Well, having said that, Mr. President, I just want to point out that if the Chinese can make and even sell, I just read a book on another book on Israel, Gideon Spies. I understand that China and North Korea sell nuclear capability to other countries. To me, it all involves the philosophy of a country. If the president will say something, I'm not criticizing the president because I realize he has a lot of problems. Let me be very clear about that. But I just want to point out that if we keep saying wala tayong kaya, we will never attain it. And that is my beef here. We have to say, kung gusto natin, we have to do it. Otherwise, we will be the poor cousin of every nation in ASEAN. Vietnam has a fairly large military. They have submarines. We don't have submarines. The smallest country is number one in ASEAN, Singapore. They have more C-130s than we do, if I'm not mistaken. And they have submarines, and they have the most modern jets. And that's Singapore. And, of course, Malaysia even has Soviet aircraft. And Indonesia definitely builds their own ships and their own vessels. When are we going to start developing a philosophy? That's why ROTC is so important. Where are we going to start developing the philosophy with the aid of the military? As Churchill said, give us the tools and we will finish the job. And if we don't have any tools, we will get finished. So my point is philosophical. This interpretation is largely philosophical, as far as I'm concerned, because we have to believe. Because if we don't, we will always be under the gun. And I'm sure that is taught in the PMA very, very well, and in other military academies. So I hope that some of these examples that we have cited can be made. Again, citing another example, and I was beginning to do that with Israel, surrounded by all these countries, they were able to beat them, and then they make adjustments, and they get territory in the process. I'm not even going to mention the 6-Day War, where they astounded the whole world. But in the Yom Kippur War, they almost lost. And to be frank about it, dapat wala nang fighting spirit. Para bang kaya natalo yung UP ng isang araw, palagi ko, walang fighting spirit. And they ran out of spirit. But you can see in the Yom Kippur War, the Israelis were about to lose that war. Their air forces were decimated by Russian SAMs that were suddenly supplied by the Russians to Egypt. And there were 1,000 to 400 tanks of the Syrians clambering in the Sinai until America resupplied them. So the importance of alliances. Now, where do we stand now in terms of alliances that can help us in case of a crunch? Your Honor, would the Americans be, or the Brits or Australia or an ASEAN confederation, would we be able to get back on our feet supposing we're attacked? I think, and I'd like to ask a second question to that follow-up. what is the possibility right now of a China, and I've asked this of many people, including the think tank in Singapore, of being hegemonic, which means that mabuti na lang nagkakagulo sa Hong Kong because eventually lumakas bigla yung Taiwan doon sila siguro sa Hong Kong at ngayon nagdadalawang isip sila, they don't want to be part of China, but of course China wants to take them. Same thing. So if that happens, and I think that is more realistic than the Spratlys or the Scarborough shows, would you agree with me, sir, that war would be more proximate if the Chinese attack Taiwan?
We will be involved definitely, Mr. President. Yeah.
I agree with the
We have an
general shift.
existing mutual defense treaty.
Yes.
And if the Americans are threatened, especially in Asia Pacific region, then we are obligated to, to come to the rescue. Any attack on any warship, on any vessel of the Americans, the Seventh Fleet, would definitely involve the Philippines.
Well, like I said, I think of late there have been saber rattling by the Chinese. They will never accept a Taiwan, being independent, especially in the light of Hong Kong. And the Singaporeans are also nervous. I mean, they're not going to admit it, but they are also nervous when I spoke to them.
But the United States will not just abandon the Taiwan Strait.
Definitely.
Definitely.
I was just reminded, baka sabihin magkagulo because of my statement in Hong Kong. I'm not intervening in Hong Kong. I have a daughter there, and I'm very concerned, especially in the light of the fact that they shot protester. Somebody got immolated by gasoline. I don't know if you saw it. It's beginning to become more. The temperature has gotten up very much so. So all I'm saying is, in the context of geopolitics, we can talk about numbers here, and we can all say kulang. But at some point in time, Mr. President, maybe hopefully next year, I am the vice chairman of the rightfully chairman, secretary the committee of the Committee on National Defense, Ping Lacson. I think at some point in time, we would have to convince one another na dagdagan natin ang ating military. Would that be possible?
Yes, Mr. President, I think we should take a good hard look on our priorities, because
Yes.
right now, and I've been vocal about this even during the DBCC meeting, we only allocate 0.39% of the budget to R&D. And we are number 54.
And that's R&D, huh?
That's R&D, and we are not giving much importance to R&D. Ang R&D natin is mag-Google kung saan bibili.
And we're talking about cyber
And we
warfare.
won't prosper in any way kung ganun ang
By the way,
ating
is there a
R&D.
cyber warfare? I'm sure there is one in the military, right?
They have an anti-cyber group unit.
So again,
A unit in the armed
the
forces.
gentleman is of course again prescient when he says we need to have a major meeting in terms of really assessing our capability, especially R&D, and especially where we're going to find money for our military. Not because I'm trying to, we're all trying to, but because I really am very concerned with the situation here in Asia. And having said that, let me just hasten to add that if we do not do so, is it not a major maxim in military science that weakness invites aggression? Di ba? And if that is the case, the more, a vessel manned by a ship captain passes by there, and I may not agree with what he did, but the fact is, kung masaktan yung barko na yun, may Pilipino doon, and we would be forced to make a comment. That would be too late by then. That's why I admired Secretary Lorenzana when he said that they should be mindful of their manners in that area, of respecting maritime rules and conduct. And at the same time, later on, he said, of course, that although this is not a Philippine vessel, nonetheless, hypothetically speaking, halimbawa, tinorpedo yun at may Filipino na namatay doon, that will create a basag ulo. Would that be correct, sir?
That is correct, of course,
And of
because
course-
they are kababayans.
And of course, we all remember the Lusitania. One of the reasons for World War I was the Lusitania, the sinking of the vessel Lusitania. So I think it is important that we should have the clout, and we should have a Singapore-Israeli mindset, or for that matter, originally, a Filipino mindset when they battled Spain, in spite, yung mga kababayan namin ni Senator Lacson sa Cavite, Senator si President Aguinaldo, sila ni Senator Tolentino, yung lolo ko, Tagle, in spite of the fact that they had only gulocks and escopetas, they were able to beat some forces of Spain. But nonetheless, it's got to be that mindset, believing in the possible. Not possible, but it's not even believing the possible. Would you agree with me, sir, that it must be? Yun
Yes.
dapat, it must.
And we must read a lot about the teachings of Sun Tzu. If we are weak, at least we pretend to be strong.
That's correct. Yung araw, mga bata tayo, manduduro tayo, ganun ba yun? Baka naman, i-call yung bluff natin. But I think they must know that when we do something, we will be resolute and do something. For example, would the good gentleman agree with me that in the case of fishing vessels interloping into our oceans, we can do what the Indonesians are doing? They burn the ships of China, of Vietnam. They capture the personnel, and I have the statistics here somewhere. And they get away with it. It means that we're well within our rights. In 2018, the ministry said they sunk 125 mostly foreign vessels, included 86 Vietnamese, 20 Malaysian, and 14 Filipino. In 2019, they sank 51 foreign ships, 38 Vietnamese, 6 Malaysian, 2 Chinese, and 1 vessel. In fact, I remember we also had Argentina fire a salvo at Chinese vessels who are going into Argentinian waters, and they were driven away. So at the very least, dapat meron tayong panlaban naman. Kahit paano na hindi lang tayo nagpapaputok sa salita, na dapat meron tayong kakayanan na tayo ay merong capability na we will walk our talk. And I think every country has the right to defend, has the right to say, if we keep doing this, sorry, we will be doing brinksmanship, but at the same time, they will respect us more. And from my brief interludes in China, where we have had some pressures before, I think they recognize that if you're strong, they will respect you. Pero tinitignan nila ang resoluteness natin. Kung wala tayong resoluteness, talo tayo. Would you say that would be accurate, sir?
Yeah, very accurate, Mr. President.
And I'm happy that I understand, and I heard kanina that Secretary Lorenzana talk about the National Task Force on the West Philippine Sea. I don't know if we're revealing any secrets. I hope not. But anyway, it is important that that National Task Force, I hope, at some point in time, I would encourage my chairman, Senator Lacson, to engage the Committee on National Defense with that task force so that we would know how to support. Mahirap mag-support pagkahuli na eh. Di ba? So, you know, I really think that we can put in more military money for our military. In the same manner that we have to put more money in our agriculture, more money in our schools, and I think we should concentrate on those 5. Una-una, our food security, our military, our health, our education, and certainly, ano pa isa? Sinabi ko? Well, tourism to make money, customs to make money, BAR to make money, and, you know, sinabi ko na agriculture. And if we do that, I think eventually, if we concentrate on that, we may have more resources. Dami natin ginagastos. That's why I was asking, sino ba yung binibigyan natin ng pera pa ng mga government agencies? And sabi ko rin kay Secretary Dominguez yan, if the so-called sasaktan kayo doon sa mga PESA, why give them incentives if they're not performing? In other words, pass the ball to those who can perform. You have to pass it to Paras.
And we keep subsidizing GOCCs.
That's right. That's correct.
Laging lugi, subsidies.
Subsidized
Magkano?
pa.
188 billion.
That's right.
Di ba?
And I'm sure.
Ang government subsidy sa mga naluluging government corporations, pumalon tayo mga 188 billion.
At saka, yung nalulugi, hindi sinasubsidize yun, winawarningan yun. Shape, sabi niya, shape up or ship out, di ba? That's the military term for it. So, I hope that maybe after the budget in January, when we meet again in January, we can sit together with the Senate President and just discuss talagang national interest concerns. Na para when the budget comes in July next year, maaga pa, nakikialam na ang militar, I would say, nag-i-intervene na tayo ng konti sa budget preparation para we can really focus on the things that we need to do. We can oversight all these agencies that are not making money. For example, we give money to a certain department of tourism, hindi naman gagastusin. Kung hindi magagawa yun, we should be able to say, all right, kung hindi nyo gagastusin yan, bigyan natin sa military. You can buy new ships or new planes. That is the case. So, again, I would like to cite that the other thing. So, what about that? Is Indonesia? Do you think we can adopt that, Your Honor?
I will have to ask Secretary Lorenzana kung pwede rin tayo manunog ng mga barko doon.
Makabawi-bawi naman ng konti.
Yeah, the difference, Mr. President.
Mas malayo sila.
Ang diferensya, yun talagang wala nagdi-dispute eh. Sa atin kasi, may territorial dispute. So, we are more careful.
Yeah.
We're more cautious. Because pwedeng invoke na, hindi, disputed waters yan eh. But in the case of Indonesia, kanila talaga yon. So,
But
pag
they have
nag-encroach
disputes also.
Yeah, but not in that area most probably.
But
Kasi
still,
kung pasugin nila ang Pasig River, pwede tayo manunog siguro. Ilubog na lang, mamamatay na yun.
sayang pa yung energy. But anyway, I think this is important that our people ought to know na political will yan eh. Yung political will sa atin eh, basta gagawin ko. Hindi eh. Yung political will must be supported by resource and proper thinking. You can back up your talk. So, is there any thinking going into that direction? Para at least malaman naman nila na, teka mo lang, hindi pwedeng ganyan basta-basta.
Definitely, yung AFP modernization, yun talaga yung direction noon, Mr. President.
Well, there have been poachers here. Remember, how many times have we released poachers? They get our turtles in Palawan.
Taclobos. Hindi Taclobos.
Taclobo, dami yan. But that's already Scarborough Shoals, that's disputed. No? But I think I would not even say that's disputed. Baja de Masinloc is named after Masinloc town of Zambales. So, of course, that's, again, a dispute. But would you say that we are threatened by the occupation of these islands, creating islands and airfields out of
Oh,
shoals?
definitely, Mr. President.
We are.
We are.
But why would we be threatened samantalang ang lapit lang? It only takes about an hour to get here from, let's say, an hour and a half to get here from, let's say, Guangzhou or maybe Macau, or I'm sure they have Air Force bases there or Navy bases, and they have submarines lurking, I'm sure, around the area. And perhaps, I don't know if the military has it, but I've seen pictures of a lot of ships in the disputed areas, hundreds of them, na parang talagang nangangaya talaga.
That's their cabbage strategy.
Yes.
Launched in 2014. You know, layer by layer.
Yeah, and parang Mao Zedong nung araw yun, di ba? First the villages, then go to the cities. So, to me, bigyan na, sabi ko na yun. Ito mga tiga Sambeda talaga, insecure eh. Sige. Now, she's trying to tell me from Mischief Reef, she's quoting you actually. Sabi mo, from Mischief Reef, it takes 20 minutes, and from Johnson Reef, 1 hour or 45 minutes. Is that correct, sir? Kay Secretary Lorenzana.
That is correct. According
So,
to
wala tayong time kung talagang tutusin unless we have soon, hopefully, high performance jet. Would the Korean jets that we get from Korea, are they sufficient to deter? Baka tawanan lang tayo dyan.
Baka kailangan may missile tayo, Mr. President.
Wala ba missile yan? I'm sure they have.
Hindi pa yata equipped eh.
They can be equipped with sidewinders, di ba? Air to air. But ang problema really, isn't it true? that most of the modern jet fighters today, they don't have to see the target. They can shoot from afar.
That is correct, Mr.
And
President.
that is something that we must let our people know, that talagang you really have to invest in the military. Otherwise, papasukin tayo, hindi natin namamalayan. They have AWACS before. Ngayon, talagang they use other technologies to be able to guide their weaponry to the target. So kahit paano, we're buying time really.
In this day and age, Mr. President, my staff gave me a book, An Army of None.
Mhm.
Hindi na kailangan talaga yung foot soldiers.
Wala
sa
na
modern
talaga.
warfare. Halos wala na.
I think
So
that is
you
the
can win
doctrine
a
of the
war
military.
even without a soldier.
And the American military now relies on special units, di ba?
That is correct, Mr. President.
Because they don't think ground troops will be necessary. So, should we now remove the army and put it all in the army and the?
I'm not saying that, Mr.
I'm just trying
President.
to titillate the imagination of the future.
Wala pa tayo doon. Wala pa tayo doon.
In other words, if you put in special capability among our troops, siguro matataas lalo ang moral niyan, pero kailangan pa rin natin ang ground troops. I would be the first one to say in our country, we need ground troops. But having spoken that way, the other day there was another fight between the BIFF and our countrymen, and 3 of our soldiers died. Just yesterday, if I'm not mistaken, or 2 days ago. Would that be correct, sir?
Kahapon?
Sa Maguindanao.
Yeah, as flashed on the screen, Mr. President.
Yes, that's precisely what this concerns me. One of my concerns when we were doing the Bangsamoro was baka manganak na naman yan, no? And I'm sure the Bangsamoro folks are not intending to do that, but there's always something that comes out, like BIFF. Or for that matter, hanggang ngayon, yung ASG, di ba natin matapos-tapos, I'd like to be the first one to open up a beach resort in Sulu, which I said when I became Secretary of Tourism, because the best way to get the people is to show that we're going to put in some resources there, some trust, para makuha yan. But unless we finish off these elements, even the NPA, for example, the military has to help us make sure that we can generate more investment activity in the areas of conflict. I think the military is very much aware of that, and we don't have to have our people die on us. I've been to too many funerals of our soldiers. Being in the Red Cross, we attend funerals of fallen soldiers, especially when they involve a lot of our folks. Now, I have gone through what I think our philosophical arguments, like you have to have resources, you have to prepare for our military, you have to make sure that we have peace in the countryside so that we can use the assets that would otherwise be used for war to modernize our military. But at the same time, there are just a few questions left here. I didn't want to engage in the debate. Senator Lacson is quite capable of finding money. I would like to help him with that, but he's more capable in terms of finding, he knows where all the dead bodies are buried in the budget. And he can resurrect them and replace them. What did we do with that Navy, that captain of Green Aura? Di ba reckless yun? I was asking that question. Bakit? Paano siya napunta doon? And layo-layo nung dala niyang tanker ba yun, ng oil? Napunta siya doon sa Scarborough. Is there an
Bound
investigation?
for Australia.
Galing papunta dapat sa Thailand yun, di ba?
Yeah, from Thailand going to China.
Yeah. Eh, paano siya napunta doon?
Parang-
Is there somebody trying to create an incident there or something? That's reckless.
Well, I think, yeah, there's recklessness involved, but I think the AFP should also take a look at whatever motive he had
Yes.
at that moment.
I agree with you. Because...
At least find out, no?
yes.
What
but
was
that's
he
why
doing there?
I hesitate to say, I preface my statements, laid the predicate by saying, if Filipinos die in that vessel, we would be in Donnybrook or fracas with the Chinese. But I think there should be an investigation conducted there to, you know, it's not bragado, it's almost like braggadocio, nagpapadar, unless there was somebody encouraging him to create an incident. So right now, Your Honor, ang pinaka-modern vessel natin is it that frigate, the Pohang class? What do you call it? Conrado Yap?
Yun na yun.
Thank you. He's from Zambales. He died in the Korean War. And then our patrol vessels right now are 11, sir?
Patrol vessels.
Del Pilar, Alcaraz, Bonifacio, Rizal, Quezon, Jacinto, Mabini, Ricarte, Malvar, Salamat, and Pangasinan.
Accurate.
I think we can now make Senator Pacquiao an admiral because there is a ship named Malvar after him. Di ba?
Pero army yata si...
Hindi, gumagawa na si Senator Pacquiao. Miguel Malvar.
Pero sa Army Reserve Force yata. Hindi pwede maging admiral.
Army. But, and then, amphibious warfare. Nagagamit pa ho natin yung nakuha natin sa Indonesia. Tarlac, Davao del Sur, Bacolod, Dagupan, Laguna, Benguet, Sierra Madre. Which ones are the new ships of the line in terms of using them for disasters or amphibious operations? That looks like a very good ship. Can get helicopters, can put out amphibious vessels, no?
Yeah. Ito nga yan, BRP Davao del Sur.
That's the one. Dalawa ho yan, di ba? There are two of them.
BRP Tarlac. Yeah.
And we've been able to use them.
They're operational.
They're operational, but have we been able to put them on the line in terms of disasters?
Yeah, they're being used, Mr.
Yeah,
President.
good. Thank you. By the way, I saw Senator Lacson. I was pleasantly surprised that he's against creating another department called disasters, and I'm against that
I have
myself.
some reservations because the President, during his 2017 and 2019 SONA, State of the Nation addresses, in-emphasize niya yung right sizing eh. So parang
Counter.
Yeah, counter to creating, we just have created the Department of Urban Development, Housing, or Human Settlements, that will be activated in January.
But you see, we create all these departments. I think we should not reinvent the wheel. I think the Secretary of Defense is appropriate for that position even under NDRMC. It really can coordinate all the military, all the local government. DILG is a member there. I'm a member there.
My exit recommendation before I resigned as the one in charge of Yolanda was to detach OCD from NDRMC and place it under the office of the President. Give them authority. No?
I think that's a very good recommendation.
Instead of creating a separate department, because yung 10121, may sunset review yun eh. I think section 27 or 37.
Yeah, dapat late.
Now, within 5 years, kailangan revisit ng oversight committee ng do sa disaster and introduce remedial legislation. And probably we can introduce amendments along that line.
Yes, NDRMC.
That could be a good compromise doon sa pag-create ng panibagong department. Because
right.
when we asked DBM, write-off, sabi niya mga 700 personnel kagad yung para mabuo yung department.
I'm only saying that, sir,
anyway,
because
we're calling for another hearing and we would like to invite the chair of NDRMC and the co-chair who is the SILG.
we had a hearing yesterday. I'm sorry I missed it, but I think that that's a step in the right direction, sir. I think we should really take a look at that. And can you imagine?
Even Yusek Halad,
as against it.
not really against because he was being harassed by Senator Tolentino. So eventually he said, yes, sir.
Why are you allowing Senator Tolentino, our kababayan, to harass Halad when he's doing the right thing?
For lack of a better word, Mr. President.
Anyway, Your Honor, I think it's important that we don't have to put more money into a cabinet again and create another bureaucracy. And then, what happens? Bawas na naman niya sa mga kailangan natin sa defense, education, and we can have all that. Anyway, the military will always. And by the way, let me at this point commend our military because they've always been in all the disasters at the forefront.
Correct.
I've been in the Red Cross for so long. Kasama namin palagi ang military, and they're always working with us, and sometimes they even lend their assets to be able to bring goods and cargo. How many C-130s do we have
Mr.
right
President, kanina I privately, I thank the Chief of Staff, General Clement, the newly confirmed 4-star General, because alam nyo, nagpadala kami ng tento sa Cotabato. Isang tawag lang namin sa kanila through our liaison, si General Estoesta. Right away, kinabukasan, nandun, natanggap yung good for 800 tents. So, while I already thank him in private kanina, I'd like to emphasize that ganun kabilis mag-react.
Well, I'm glad you
pagdating sa
said that, Senator
calamities.
Lacson, because I want all the other senators to hear that. they don't see that sometimes.
Wala na
They don't-
sulat-sulat, Mr. President.
Wala na sulat. Mabilis, kung merong gamit ang military, mabilis tayo makakakilos. Not only in war, but also in disasters. And that is why I would like to tarry a little.
Di ba yung C-130, isa lang lumilipat? Sabi ko, huwag na natin sabihin, nakakaya.
Well, I was gonna say,
Pero sinabi ko na rin.
in the past we had two. Isa lang ang lumilipad, bali pa pakpak. But you know, it's not something that we should laugh about because the C-130 is a very, very important plane in any man's military. And I think we should really invest in those planes. Ilan na Singapore? Ilan na C-130 na Singapore? You know, sa Singapore, lumipad lang yan. Nasa Malaysian airspace na yan eh.
Mga
Ako, masasabong ko ito kung sinabi ko na yung 3 beses ko na tinanong sa kanya yan eh.
Mga magkano?
And we bought some small planes, right?
Oo.
I think we got one from Spain.
PNP, kumikire, nagre-request ako ng additional pan 2 billion. Bibili raw sila ng C-130.
Hindi naman sa C-130 na isang araw.
Ano pa, oo nga.
Singapore has 5 C-130s. And when they fly the C-130 right away, as soon as it takes off, it's already on Malaysian airspace. So,
Yeah.
we have a country of 7,400 plus islands. Huh? 7,000?
102
600? No, hindi na. Luha na yan.
during low tide.
No, hindi. Bago na. 7,641 islands. And yet we have, as you say, meron naman tayong asset pero isa lang ang lumilipad right now. But can we not put a special effort there, Senator Lacson, so that we can actually have more C-130s to be utilized, not only for disasters, but to react to emergencies that can happen.
One
Maybe we can
C-130
find
would
ways and
cost
means.
roughly mga 2 billion pesos,
I know.
Mr. President.
Oh, second hand pa yun.
Yeah, brand new na
Brand new na
yan.
yung 2 billion?
Yeah, brand new.
Oh, yun. Why should we? If we can afford it, why not? I think we can afford it if we want to. C-130, they bring their families. I've been to C-130 several times, and I see that yung cargo kasama yung mga pamilya, nakatayo pa doon sa aeroplano. So I refuse to sit on the cockpit eh. I want to be able to talk with the soldiers there. In fact, one time I talked with a master sergeant who was very proud of his son was graduating in the PMA. And while we're talking about the PMA, Your Honor, would the gentleman agree that we should revive the fact that our PMA soldiers should be recommended also by province, like in the past?
In the past, yes. In the past, I remember you would need a recommendation from your district representative.
A congressman or a senator to be able to. But more than that is the fact that we spread out the military leadership in the country.
Ang so equitable. Equitably distributed naman daw,
Regional.
Mr. President. Yes.
In the next meeting of the Committee on National Defense, we would appreciate you giving us a copy of that because I really am seriously looking at that because I think it's a damn good idea. Of course, hindi lang naman yung recommendations ng mga legislators but also yung mga anak na mga mga NCOs or soldiers that feel that if their child is capable, they should have some space in the academy. I think it's very, very important that we have that. Also, so we have a problem with the C-130s, and what is the Andrada class of patrol boats? A Navarrete class.
Mas alam pa ni...
Is that a fast craft? Seven,
78 footer.
Saan ginagamit doon yan? Sa Mindanao o panghabol ng
Gunboat?
just small gunboat?
That is correct, Mr. President. 78 footer.
And are OV-10 still working?
Still working. Still working but not working. Right now. We have 4.
That's a very good support aircraft for our soldiers on the ground, di ba? 7 yan, di ba? 7?
4.
4 na lang. So, nabawasan na itong... Ano yung ginagamit ng Amerikano ngayon na matagal na rin sa Vietnam pag ginamit yun? Pinalit nila sa OV-10. A-10, ah. We cannot get that this for our type of warfare here.
Yeah.
Well, the other thing that really worries me about our military, for example, we go to Jordan. Tuwan-tuwa tayo, binigyan tayo ng Black Hawk ng Jordan, if I'm not mistaken, di ba? Dalawang Black Hawk. Cobra. Oh, luma na raw, sabi ni Senator Subiri. Society boy yan, at saka, alam niya lahat yung luma. Sorry? Cobra is a Vietnam War vintage helicopter, but anyway, these things last forever. But I would just like to think, what are we doing in terms of upgrading the Air Force apart from fighter aircraft to fight, to be a deterrent and at least ground warfare natin? Are we modernizing that as well? Or just hand-me-downs by the U.S. military? Meron pa bang ganon? O binabayaran natin lahat, di ba? We pay for all the assets that we get now.
Ang direction natin is to procure brand new equipment.
Brand new, the new strategy. I think that's a very good strategy and we should commend you guys because you have to really bite the bullet. Huwag na tayong, para may respectability naman tayo. I really believe that because, I mean, you guys fight with your lives against the common enemies of our country at tapos bibigyan kayo ng inferior equipment. I think that's sinful. That's sinful. You don't send somebody with a knife in a gunfight. Diba? Parang gano'n yan eh. What is the new smaller version of the C-130? I think you got one from Spain, right? Marami ba tayo na?
295.
Ano ang capability niyan?
Ilan yung meron tayo? Yeah, we have 4. They came from Spain, Mr.
Yes.
President.
Anong payload ho niyan?
50-seater, no? 50-seater.
50. What about in terms of cargo? Di ba, usually, is it more of personnel or cargo?
There's a ramp.
I know, it opens in the back. I know
Yes.
that.
But how many kilo? Ilan tonelada kayang cargo? How many 6x6 trucks?
Yan ba yan? Yan ba yan? Hindi. Yan ba yan? C-295. Casa.
Spain eh. Spain.
Bahay. And that is useful for your purposes, Senator Lacson. That is useful.
Troop carrier.
Troop carrier.
Not necessarily cargo plane, di ba?
And it can land as well as a C-130 on short runways, of course.
That is correct.
Thank you. And do we still have marketees for trainers? Or Korean sa lahat?
Yes, we still have.
And our helicopter fleet, I think we have added more, di ba?
We have 30.
30 new ones?
Yeah.
You know what was one of the great disappointments of this representation was when we bought second-hand helicopters allegedly manufactured or refurbished in another country and it was brought here. Yung katawan ang umiikot, yung pakpak hindi umiikot. And we never got to use it, right? And then when we started buying Polish helicopters, ilan na nag-crash sa Polish helicopters?
3 out of 8, tatlo na yung nag-crash, Mr. President.
And is that safe for our people?
No Air Force pilot is safe, Mr. President.
I don't agree with that. Otherwise, we better raise the pension where we're already having problems with that already. But I think maintenance is where I'm headed now. Are we maintaining? We used to have the best maintenance Air Force in the world. Practically, I know that. Yeah. Wala, di ako marunong siya na UP. UP spelling, UP.
Yeah. A testament do sa kagalingan ng maintenance natin. Imagine, all planes are still flying. So magaling yung maintenance sa group natin. Mr.
I would not
President.
accept that as a testament with all your due respect.
For
But I think they're also being pirated, di ba? All the time. So are our schools churning out more of these maintenance? You know, Senator Rectos rode in one helicopter, kaya lang malayer ba? Hindi na ano, nung bumagsak, di ba? Oh, masamang damo, in other words. But it's important. Polish. Ito mo, Polish. Oh, ha? So-called. So, to my mind, are we need of maintenance funds for that? Is that the problem, or are we? So we have enough funds for that. Yeah. Well, finally, I just want to say this. I was in a funeral the other day of General Munoz. Munoz ba yan?
Madrinho?
Class of 55. And I was so impressed with all the generals there. And I just want to say, during that time, generals were really generals. And I don't know about this time. I'm not condemning you, but it just disappoints us when you have 8 generals from the PMA testifying against a fellow general from the PMA. And I think it's important that we inculcate values back to the PMA. I'm not one who's going to say abolish the PMA. I think we should keep our traditions alive. And may I say that try to really tighten up on hazing, tighten up on the values that, that make for a very disciplined military.
Mr. President, we value the honor code, the cadet honor code. And one of our cavaliers wrote, and he said, we close ranks when injustice is done to one of our own,
That's correct.
as in the case of General Bautista. If you recall,
Si Adolfo
Rolando, the DSWD,
is that
when
the
he
one
was
who was
being
killed
attacked,
in Cebu?
DSWD,
Ah.
the PMAAA closed ranks and supported him. But we also practice ostracism when we see that one of our own is committing an honor violation. So,
And I think it's
yun ang-
important that that be made known to all future cadets that it is not a right, it's a privilege, and that when they enter the academy, they will be called cavaliers because cavaliers, by its very term, means a very honorable gentleman who knows his profession very well. And I think just as I know you don't need it, but unsolicited advice, I remember when the U.S. Military Academy had a series of cadets that were eventually court-martialed. I remember Cali in Vietnam, they were killing civilians, and right away the Military Academy fine-tuned their services so that they emphasize values and code of conduct and all that. Because kung yun ang pinaka-basic thing, I think we Filipinos will be well assured that we have a military that we can already proud for, but we will even be prouder if they're able to maintain that. On that note, I'd like to thank my good friend, Senator Lacson, for allowing me the space to be able to cite some of the things that I think need to be said in my own humble
Thank you.
capacity so that we can improve the military.
And I'll take advantage of the absence of General or Senator Villanueva. Good luck, UP.
Thank you. We say good skill. I never say to a soldier good luck. I say good skill. That's how you survive. Thank you very much.
Mr. President.